Hello, and welcome to the Santaland podcast. I created it just for you. I'm your host, Tony Felice, and each episode I'll read to you for 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about what we just heard. Like the cricket in my story, I'll guide you through a grown-up fairy tale, one that explores ideas of existence, identity, and the soul's journey through trauma, and the transformative power of love. By the end, you'll have heard my whole story, a sneak peek into the creative process of bringing a book to life. Maybe we'll read other books together. But for now, follow the wise cricket and discover the Santaland within yourself, a place of hope, connection, and peace that's already inside of you. This podcast is especially made for those like me who feel a little different and maybe talk about math at weddings or philosophy at funerals. And like me, maybe you have a loving husband, or a wife, or somebody else that loves you. If not, we're here to love you, because you're in good company, my dear friends, here in Santaland. Hello, and welcome back to the Santaland podcast. Thank you for being here. We are about to read chapter 28, entitled, Spin Creates Gravity, Gravity Creates Spin. Tom found his car and returned to Christmas Hill. Later, at dinner. David, I'm telling you, sorry, this is delicious. Well done. So, here's the thing I wanted to talk to you about. Maybe God wants us to get outside and see things. Creation. And maybe our whole purpose for being alive is to simply love and to witness that creation. And to take care of each other. We pinch ourselves off from that, I think. Which part? The get outside part for our health or the part about being alive? David asked. Tom replied, Shut up, don't look at me like that. More potatoes? David asked. Yes, thanks. Anyway, us, immerse ourselves in our own creations instead of God's. And it's mankind's creations that totally consume us. Phones, house interiors, hidden dramas, internal spin, depression, headache. We create a whole universe inside ourselves, and yet gravity is still in charge. Spin creates gravity, gravity creates spin. Yet in the end, it's only you that matters, not the gravity, which may, in and of itself, be the ultimate creator of perception, transcending time, distance, dimensions, and universes. Gravity. But to gain a greater perspective, we have to tear ourselves away from manufactured gravity and instead take in the gravity of creation. What it means to sit on a hill and look at clouds. Is that meaningless? I say no, it's not. Every time I struggle, I return to the beach for answers, and they come more readily than from anywhere else. Well, like the vineyard, that open space where you can feel the majesty of a place. It's quite humbling, and it puts the internal gravity into perspective so that it can be understood in a way that would have been impossible in, say, the living room or the bedroom or sitting in front of a computer. You, David, and waves and clouds and flowers. You matter. That's what matters. Do you know what I mean? We deal with people all the time that are driven by their internal spin. But if we bring them magic and show them that the other gravity, in quotes, is the one from which we should create, perhaps they might understand. But they sit in front of their computers for hours, only to go home at night, kiss the wife or husband or significant other, and then go to bed after looking at a phone for hours, only to create more internal spin, from which they expect to create great things. I'm one of those people, David. I've been one of those people. And the prison of internal gravity must be dealt with and understood. That it does not run the show. That it is not in charge. This internal spin. Only God is in charge. And if you don't believe that, then then maybe math is in charge. And math to me sometimes feels like love, almost like the structure of love. Do you know what I mean? David did know what Tom meant, and he was inspired and heartened by this outburst of creative understanding. It heralded in a long-awaited change, a welcome new breeze to lift the curtains of expectation and worry. David was reminded of a poem written by Tom shortly after they had met. It was one of a collection, some published, some not. Tom hated them, but David loved them. He could recite them by heart, one of his secrets. It was a poem he wrote about him, David. David was secretly glad that millions of people had read a poem about him, whether they knew it or not. He could recite it by heart now, in his mind. Before I met you, shall I bring the moment to its end, and whisper seaweed sprawled upon a beach, and not pretend that the scuttling socks strewn on the floor mimic rapping on the door, from smoky hands, incessant snapping, butt ends breath and rancid coffee chew off a piece of the matter at hand, and fingers smoothed ruffles on white sheets that withstand the gaze of weary faces, and burnt tired limbs that dream of down and softer places. I find it daunting, this wanting scurries through my chest and nestles waiting in thumping chambers of emptiness, like echo footsteps on gallery cold floors, and scuffling shoes marked off in 3s and 4s, lingering tours for missing strangers. Your face lives in outer space. Sunlit squinting cosmos trace a path to your apple door. An urgent time-space slows to a crawl, anticipating, contemplating, exhilarating possibility of something more than I have been expecting or had even thought of before. Back in the moment, David could feel a connection between what Tom had said before in that poem. He thought must be exhausting for him to point out magic all the time, that most people just walk past on their way to leaving a banana peel next to a trash can, instead of putting it in. Poor Tom. He really is a deep thinker. He thinks of things that most people can't even understand. That must be so sad for him. It's as if we know better than God, right? Tom had replied. His speaking had interrupted David's thoughts. I love it, hon. I really do. I'm very proud of you, babe, David replied. I have to think of these things, David, Tom said, mimicking little Edie. A laugh, a pause, a long one. Do you want to hear a funny story? Tom asked finally. Sure, David replied. Tom said, so a group of us were having a conversation after my talk last year, and to my right is this priest. He told us a joke that's sort of related to what we're talking about. Let me see if I can remember it. The priest goes something like this. Lots of us like to think that we know better than God, don't we? Right? We're cool. We got this. So one time, this neighbor of mine, he's a funny, happy fellow. Well, he is presently sliding off the roof of his house to his doom. He's 50. He knows better. Standing on the roof, Christmas lights and all, you get it. Anyway, his ability to withstand a fall like that isn't looking really good from a probability standpoint, you know? Anyway, this old fellow's bargaining with God. Save me this. God, a better father this. Better husband that. When all of a sudden, one shingle after another slips out of his grip. His hands are desperately grabbing for anything. Please, God, he yells, falling towards the edge. Please, I'll be a better person. I'll be a better husband. I'll go to church and confession. When all of a sudden, all hope was lost, he falls from the 3 stories. But then, suddenly, a branch miraculously appears out of nowhere, like magic, to which our man, after grabbing it safely, says, Never mind, I got it. There was a pause for laughter, and then the priest adds, I suppose the Lord does work in mysterious ways. David looked at Tom and squinted. Blink, He looked to the left, then down, then back at Tom. Maybe you figured all this out because you went outside? Is that your point? Ha ha, Tom replied. I promise I won't fall off the roof this year, hun, David said. But David's blueberry pie was waiting in the kitchen, and that was all Tom could think of, having lost his point over the smell of it from the other room. He was getting closer to the truth. Chirp. Okay, that was chapter 28. And with me is my other half. Say hello, Tim.
Hello. Happy to be here.
So what did you think about this chapter, Tim?
I love the chapter. The thing that stands out most to me is how we spend so much time immersed in our own creative of the world, or how we perceive it to be, probably quite often in a negative way, rather than enjoying the creation that God has laid out in front of us. Everything that we should be enjoying that was given to us, rather than just hanging on and lingering on to items in our lives that just upset us.
Right. So we know that a lot of prophets and big thinkers often went to the wilderness to recollect their thoughts, and to sometimes get away from their followers, but also to kind of withdraw into that internal space.
Right.
And so we had gone camping, and it was about 2 days after we were there that we noticed that we were in a vortex.
Right. Yes, I remember that.
And how did we know that we were in a vortex?
Because everything around us was like in a spin. It was just everything in nature around us.
Right. All the trees were bent to the left or to the right. I can't remember, but they were all bent in one direction, and you could see almost like, if you look up at the treetops, you could see almost a swirl.
Correct.
Right around the campground.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So I think you had taken Beamer for a walk, and I was sitting there with my journal, and I started to draw a spiral out of nowhere.
Right.
You remember that? I was working on my first book before this one, and the craziest thing happened, didn't it?
Yes.
It was about 5:30 in the evening, and I heard my brother-in-law, Blake Harrison, whisper in my ear out of nowhere. He said, "Don't let smart ruin happy."
Yep. Yep. Very profound thing to have whispered, regardless of where it came from.
Right, because at that moment, we later learned that he had died.
Yes, exactly.
And simultaneously, at the same time, my sister was she had gone to see, I think, Hamilton or Wicked. And so she had stepped outside during intermission, and it was a beautiful Phoenix night. And she said, I couldn't shake this overwhelming feeling of like Native American music and just awe in the natural environment, because it was the sunset and the palm trees and all of that, and it just really struck her.
Right.
Do you remember her telling us that?
Yeah.
It was exactly the same time.
I know that was. It's amazing. First of all, that happened at that same time, but the overall message that he shared with us, shared with you, and what Sherry was receiving.
Right.
Again, it comes down to about those earthly things,
right?
As opposed
being present, being present, right? So, as a poet and a writer of prose and a part-time math person, I am observant of ratios. I'm observant of patterns, but also of emotions and feelings and all these connections. As a writer, I make all these connections, right? And as a poet, we put some of those connections together by stringing words together, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so here we are, and for those who don't know, Blake Harrison was He toured the world with his band. Wasn't
Right.
my kind of music. It was a
Mm.
screaming and yelling. But he was someone a lot like me. He was very smart, but he was also very passionate and very emotional, and sometimes his emotions got the best of him.
Right.
And he expressed his anger at the very things that we talk about in this
Mm-hmm.
chapter, about the internal spin,
Mm-hmm.
about all the things that we're focused on that are not what we're supposed to be focused on.
Right.
We're supposed to be looking at flowers and plants and how the sun shines off your face and the look on your face when you see a dolphin jump out of the water. Like that is what we're supposed to be focused on.
Exactly. I um, I understand this on a level that I thought I understood it on, and let me explain that because you're probably thinking, "What?" Um, you know, we both are involved in the community here, okay, and we want to live in a place where um, not only are we happy here, but also want a place that's respected. You know, um, it's beautiful. We're between two bodies of water. The weather's great. Scenic wise, it's gorgeous. But we get really involved in our community, and we do a lot of good, I believe. But even even with that, we still have to remind ourselves, even though we think or we know that we're doing good, we still have to give that attention to the creation that God's given us, and just to enjoy
Right.
our settings itself, rather than being so involved with protecting it and worrying about it.
Right.
Just enjoy it,
Right.
to see what
Because we
would you
started a beach clean organization. We're active in
in
the
the
town council.
council, all
We
that.
care about the community.
Hmm.
We have our eyes and ears open for all kinds of things.
Hmm.
We're always looking out for our neighbors.
Hmm.
This is not self-serving at all.
Right.
This is all, and so, to your point, what you're saying is that we get so wrapped up in the business of people and the things we've created that
Hmm.
we lose sight of this amazing creation around us, and that's where answers come from,
Right.
right? Because here I'm sitting in the spiral. He has passed away, and unfortunately, the terrible thing is that he's passed away in one of the most awful ways one can,
Right.
and that is to be all by themselves in a hallway in a hotel in a
Hospital.
hospital.
Yeah.
Um, he had friends running around trying to help him out, but they didn't get there in time,
Right.
and so he died. And sorry, I had to pause the microphone so I could make an ugly noise.
Your throat's dry. That's all.
But that what he would visit my sister and I,
Yeah.
you know, at the same time.
Right. Um,
That's kind of crazy,
it
right?
is. It is.
And
Crazy.
we didn't know this until a few hours later. We had heard that he passed, and then Sherry and I connected and we talked about that.
Yes.
And then when we got home, you remember we were standing at the kitchen counter, and the idea had come to me about gravity, right?
Right.
And you said spin creates gravity.
Right. Hmm.
And I repeated gravity creates spin, right?
Yep.
So we had this moment of eureka, aha. Because simultaneous to this, what I was working on was I was working on solving a math paradox about parallel lines, and that
Yeah.
parallel lines, run forever, and that they never meet, etc., except under one condition, and that's where the sum of the square root of all the angles is not 180 degrees. Then you know that, or 90. I don't remember what the math equation is. Oh my gosh, it's silly of me to bring it up and not know it off the top of my head.
That's okay.
But the point is that if those angles are not 90-degree angles, if you draw a line through two parallel lines, then that means that they will merge, and that is a paradox because parallel lines don't merge ever.
Right. Hmm.
Well, the thought occurred to me that it might be gravity that causes those lines to merge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you talking about spin creates gravity, but then I'm thinking about frequency. Frequency causes spin. Spin causes gravity. Gravity causes what? Right? And so gravity is a unifying force. It is a pulling force. It's a opposing force sometimes to some degree. But we're all bound by gravity,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also bound by love.
Right.
What if love is that force? And this was the germination of the idea for Santaland, because the idea was that if we could solve this paradox using logic, right, that you could unlock a secret, and the secret is the signal, and the signal is reality, and reality is a beacon, and the beacon is in Santaland, and the beacon is calling to you, and it is like, remember Contact, where the movie Contact, where the where Asimov wrote that, was it he or Arthur C. Clarke who wrote Contact? I can't remember whether it's Asimov or Clarke.
Carl
Or
Sagan. Carl
Sagan.
Sagan.
Okay, all right, one of those great minds. Anyway, the exciting part is that the broadcast signal, they realized it was not just sound, it was image, and not just image, it was a 3D image, and that within the 3D image was a primer.
Right.
I think I've stumbled on a primer by looking at math in a different way, and we're not going to talk about that now. But the idea was that something so precious would need to be protected, right?
Right.
But there's no hate or anger or evil in Santaland, so the protection must be a mechanism that is like a machine, right? So the mechanism is frequency. If you're not vibrating at the right frequency, you can't hear the signal. If you can't hear the signal, you can't find Santaland.
Right.
So that was the whole premise of the book that came from when Blake died.
I know.
I hope you can hear me. I was sitting far away from the microphone.
Oh yeah,
just
I'm sure that they
we'll have
could.
to listen back.
Yeah, I'm sure that they could. You have you have that great voice anyway. So, yes, I back to what you were talking about, love and gravity. I think of love as sort of maybe I think of it as like the seed to gravity.
Right.
You know,
it's the seed to grab. I believe it's the precursor to curiosity is love, right? And the and form follows function. Function follows intention or inspiration. Inspiration follows curiosity. Curiosity follows love. So it also, so they talk about dark matter. I don't know if that's a real thing. I think it's love. Believe it or not, as naive as that may sound, I think love is the unifying force that holds everything together.
Exactly.
It's what holds the planets in space. It's what causes galaxies to spin at a rate that is incongruous with Newtonian physics, right? All kinds of crazy things. So what is it like to be married to somebody this crazy?
Oh, I don't think of you as crazy. I love it. I love our conversations. I love the things that we not only come up with together, but the things that we come up with on our own that we can share and expand on it. You know, I don't know if I've ever known anybody in my life that I could talk about the things that I'm talking about, that you and I share.
Right.
You know, and
that is such a gift, because I spent a long time by myself. We didn't meet until we were both almost 40 years old.
Right.
And I had encountered a great deal of people up to that point, and none of them were like you.
Right.
You couldn't, while you may not understand all of the math part, you understand the logic part. And that was what was missing for me in school when I was being taught mathematics, is that people would just tell me that's the way it's done, but they wouldn't tell me why.
Right.
And that frustrated me. And that, because they couldn't tell me why, it colored my experience. I didn't take it seriously because I thought, something's off here.
Right.
Even the concept of zero, I don't believe is nothing. I believe there's no nothing. In fact, to call nothing is to make it something.
Right.
So in and of itself, that's a paradox, right? But there is no zero, and there's no nothing. There is only everything. And matter, for example, we can use quantum mechanics here, and there's other ways to describe this. But in philosophy, okay. If something has the potential to exist, it always existed. Matter can be neither created nor destroyed. That means it always exists. That means that everything that is formed by matter has already been formed. It just needs to be formed.
Yeah.
It's in a state of unformation, but it is about to be formed, which means where is that state of being and not being at the same time?
Yeah.
That is something that has been fascinating me. And there's an answer there.
Right.
And it goes to like quantum entanglement. You affect one photon, and its twin elsewhere in another place is simultaneously affected. A new study just came out about superposition. So as a poet, I see these things, I read these articles, I learn this math, I hear the world, and then I have a metaphysical experience, supernatural experience, where my brother-in-law comes to me, and I have to articulate this into a story without going nuts. What do you think about that?
I find it fascinating. Look at one of the things that I understand it, okay, because I don't know. One of the reasons why I appreciate our relationship and appreciate the things that we talk about, okay. Now, when I say appreciate that, I mean as a form of love, okay. Right. I think you understand that. I don't know what I would think about or how much I would care about things if I didn't have this underlying what's it all about or what's it all for.
Right.
Going on through my life. And I wonder, it's like when we sit out on the bayside on the beach and I see all the cars coming in.
Right.
And that, it's like I feel like I'm seeing, think of these people in their cars. This is nothing, I'm saying anything negative about the people that are coming here. I'm just saying all I feel sometimes is these shoulders with an air bubble sitting on it. You know what I mean? It's like, I wonder what's in there. You know what I mean? I wonder what's going on with these people. Do they have these types of conversations? What do they think about? Because we have this tendency to make these assumptions about people, and we can think of people the most negative and horrible ways sometimes. But, how do we know that they're not sitting there trying to solve these same problems?
I hope they are. Honestly,
I need to too.
That would make me so happy.
Oh, it would.
In fact, that's a secret to Santa Land, is that there is no competition.
Mm-hmm.
There's only love and service to others and service to self.
Right.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Everything else falls into place. So even though there's structure and there's buildings and there's rules, all these things, they fall into place because it is a naturally altruistic environment where everyone cares for each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has that internal desire, the drive to do so, right? How could we get there? I mean, we're so mixed up as a human race right now. To unravel from such a quagmire, we can't all just like go out and look at the trees. We can't just all go out and look at waves.
No.
And shirk all of our responsibilities. But in effect, that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yep.
In effect, what we're supposed to do is to just we're supposed to build things for each other, look out for each other, and help lift every one of us up to be the best that we can be. Mm-hmm. And a rising tide lifts all boats in that environment.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
The need for criminality, the need for excess, the need for ego, those things fall away in an environment like that because it doesn't even occur to somebody to gain an advantage over somebody else.
Exactly. So
the thought to do so would be well, first of all, if they had that thought, they would be immediately bounced from Santa Land because they'd be vibrating at the wrong frequency.
Right. Exactly.
And that's how Santa Land is protected.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
Our character doesn't know that yet, Tom. No, we know that because the book's written, but our character doesn't know that. Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about the character and about what you saw and the journey you've been on with me since my mom died, and the tragedies that I've had to absorb.
What I get from the book, as far as in regards to you, is in witnessing the journey that you've been on, is somebody that, kind of repeating what I said earlier. What's it all about? What's it all for? You're trying to make, and I think Tom's character is trying to make heads or tails of this life. Okay. Mm-hmm. Trying to put it all in perspective and what am I not doing? What have I done that's wrong? What can I be doing better? And just
don't you think it's hard enough to figure those things out, figure out how life works, how a checkbook works, how to maintain, how to talk to clients, how to like that life is difficult enough
Mm-hmm.
without those traumas
Mm-hmm.
and without people out there who are delivering more traumas to other people.
Exactly.
That just dilutes everything. It makes
Exactly.
the math cluttered.
Mm-hmm.
It makes reality cluttered,
Mm-hmm.
and it distracts us away from our true nature,
Right.
which is to love each other.
Right. I think maybe in Tom's character that Tom is trying to sort of take all these things that are happening, all the things that he thinks he's seeing or the things that he's seeing, and sort of wanting to sort of step over all of those things to um, land in a place with a greater understanding and a better perspective, and that, and then realizing on the journey, it's like, well, I can't necessarily step over that. I've got to sort of absorb what it
Right,
is that I've learned,
right,
so that I
right,
can
right.
be in that place.
That's called fluid intelligence.
Right.
There are two kinds of it. Well, there's probably more than two kinds, but there are two kinds that I'm aware of in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
One is fluid intelligence, where you don't know it all.
Right.
You know what you know, subject to change with new data.
Right.
Right. That's called fluid intelligence. Crystallized intelligence is when you memorize things, like multiplication tables, and it's rigid, and you can't move out of that. Right. That's called crystallized intelligence. Or you put semiconductors together a certain way. That's crystallized intelligence. Right. Fluid intelligence is one where there's a couple of different writing styles. For example, my writing style is I sit and I listen to the music that's coming to me, and then I write it out, because I'm not making any assumptions out of the gate and then trying to fit a narrative into that assumption.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I start writing, I start collecting data, I start analyzing things in a poetic way.
Right.
And then truths start to emerge from which I form a basis of understanding that is fluid,
Right.
meaning it's subject to change if new data comes in.
Right. I think that I think that Tom, I think that you, I think that you and that character and many other people in this world, and I know for myself, speaking for myself as well, is that we are challenged by the very people in this world that seem to think that heaven doesn't come until after we pass.
Right.
And I think that for Tom, for you, that really, and especially for you in this life, that it's sort of like, why do we have to wait?
Right.
Why can't we create this world where it is all about love?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and giving and caring and being expressive with each other without shame or hurt,
Right.
or hurting each other. Okay, why do we, you know, why can't we create that now? Okay, because no matter what we experience in this world, no matter how beautiful our life might be, there's still always going to be something tremendously profound and incredibly much more beautiful in the afterlife than we could ever think of. So it's still going to come. But, you know, we need to be in this, we need to create as much of that here in this world now, rather than just biding our time until we go. It's like, I think that's what Tom's journey is, and I think that's what your journey is. It's like, I don't want to wait for that. It's like, you don't want to sit there and you're not sitting there going, I can't wait until, you know, I get to experience that. It's like, I want to experience that now. And so it might be one of the frustrations that happen in our lives is when we see bad behavior or people treating each other bad or whatever. We see bad things happening and people taking advantage and all that stuff. And it's really easy to get ourselves really, really immersed into that and that negativity. But that's not what we want. The reality
It's not, nor is it something physiologically that we need.
Right.
We need to be connected. We need to see
Yes.
acts of kindness. It is proven that that when an act of kindness is is done to you, for you, that your serotonin levels rise. There's a positive impact on your immune system and on various other positive things that happen. But what also happens is the person that did the gesture, that did the kindness, their serotonin levels increase to that level. Okay, great. But also the person observing the kindness, their serotonin levels increase to that same level, and they have the positive benefits to their immune system. But think about this. What has occurred? What has occurred is that you've witnessed something happening, but you've had to use your ears, your eyes, your senses, your intuition, your vision. The light bouncing off the objects has given them substance and form that you use to establish context.
Yes.
Right? But all these things came from a thought. The thought came from molecules. They came from atoms. They came from subatomic particles. That came from we've demonstrated that within superposition, those two particles can relate. So what's happened is that there has been quantum entanglement between the atoms that make you up, the person getting the gift, the person giving the gift, and yourself, and the person observing, all of that. Somehow those atoms have commingled and have signaled for your body to reduce, for your brain to produce serotonin levels. That there's some sort of quantum entanglement going on there, right? And that's my point, is that kindness begets kindness. And it's and love forward is expansive, ever expansive. Love backwards is evil.
Right.
EVOL.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we can hold some of this. I think we could cover some of this conversation in another episode.
Oh
we're
yeah,
kind of up
for
at
sure.
about 20 minutes, but
Yeah, sorry to talk so long, but it's like some of these things too. And even as we're talking, it's like I know that there's a lot that I realized through the reading, but just even through the expanded conversation that we have, even more comes to mind. And that. So I hope I answered your questions.
You did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted
this.
to revisit, especially, and we want to dedicate this episode to Blake Harrison.
Yes. Yeah.
And
he was a good guy. He really was. He was a lot of fun.
He was hilarious.
So
and he loved our nephews, the chickens.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much for sticking around and listening to the Santaland podcast. Every episodes are issued on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and you can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, including YouTube. So thanks for listening.
I'm happy to be here. Bye.
Bye.